Hello fellow crafty persons. I'm pretty excited today to share this with you. It's a new stitch I came up with. I did my due diligence to the best of my ability to see if this was somewhere else out there, and I couldn't find it. Here is what I like to call my Crazy 8 lace. It's called Crazy 8 not only because of the look, got little 8s going all through this little guy. Also because of the wrap that you do on your peg, I also call it a Crazy 8. This is done on a small gauge. This is the KB Authentic 18-inch expandable loom. Ignore the numbers. I'm a peg numberer, and that's for another project. But this is the size loom that this sample is done on with a 3-weight yarn, like a baby yarn. I also did it in a heavier weight. This is like their standard Red Heart Saver yarn that you can get at like Walmart and stuff. This is the same stitch done on a large loom, long loom. So you can see what that looks like. And then I wanted to see how it would work in the round. And this is the same stitch done on a mini hat. I just did this on a 24 peg round because, again, I wanted to see how it was going to look. And again, you can see the 8s, number 8. So what I'm going to teach you in this video is how to do the Crazy 8 flat. And we are going to use this 3/8 gauge loom as our example. The procedure for a large loom is exactly the same. You're just going to want to use a thicker yarn. I don't know that I do a double yarn if you want to try this, but I think you would lose the effect of the lace and the little openings. I tried it with a super chunky yarn and I didn't like the look of it all. It completely lost its feature. So we're just going to do this in we're going to use a size 4 weight yarn, which would be this one right here. And again, on the 3/8 gauge loom. So let's get started. I've got my handy dandy little straw. These are my favorite. They come from a certain sandwich shop whose name starts with an S. That shall remain nameless here. But anyway, I like this size because they're not too big and they fit well. With a little bit of squishing, they fit really well through this smaller gauge loom. So I'm going to run my thread, or my yarn. This is my little trick that I use for running my yarn through my straw. Boop, and there you go. And then I'm going to make a slip knot. I've gotten in the habit, I don't use this slip knot to begin my knitting because I just don't like the way it looks on the finished product. So I actually have a tendency to put my slip knot on another peg, and then I do my purl over, which is basically its own slip knot. And I do that by coming around the back of my peg, going around again, bringing my hook up, pulling my yarn down, and flipping my yarn back over the first peg. I think some people refer to this as a half knit as well, and that creates a slip knot that, to me, just, I don't know why, but it seems to look different to me when I start. And we're going to start this sample I did with my my curved border to top and bottom. I'm going to do a separate video on this. I like it because it comes out nice and flat. I mean, look how flat that is. So I'm going to do a separate video on doing this curved top and bottom border. But really quickly, we're going to do a crochet cast on, a needle-less, or I should say without a crochet hook. Kristen Mangus of Good Knit Kisses has a really good video on how to do this. This is where I picked this up from her. And you just basically go through your peg yarn up, pull your yarn down, and flip it over the back. It's the same as we did on this peg. Instead of going over the same hook, we're going over the next hook. So bring your yarn around back, go up with your hook, pull your yarn down, flip it back. Again, I will put the link for my video on this cast on in the notes at the bottom of this video, or visit Kristen at Good Knit Kisses. Again, up, flip it over the back, up with your hook, pull your yarn down, flip it over the back. You're going to want to do this stitch when you're doing it in the flat. You're going to do multiples of 2 plus 1. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, however many stitches you want to do, and then you're going to add one more. And then, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're going to do 12. And then we're going to do plus 1. And then when I do the crochet cast on, I always do the last peg with a flat front wrap knit, and that brings a nice finish to the row. Okay, and then what I'm going to do really quick is get some more yarn. And then I'm just gonna do a real quick purl to make this a little bit flatter. Again, just doing a purl won't make that flat kind of rolled top and bottom border that I showed you. I'm going to do a separate video again on that. So we're just going to do our purl. I'm assuming that those of you who are watching this video already know some of the basics of loom knitting, such as the knit and the purl. And this is not a how to loom knit video. This is specific for the Crazy 8 lace that we're going to be doing. So I'm almost done. Almost done. Then I'm going to do an E-wrap here on the end and yarn over. Then I'm going to take that anchor peg off and put it down here, tuck it down in my loom. Okay. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the figure 8. There's a figure 8 and there's a modified figure 8. So your basic figure 8 usually goes, you skip a peg, you wrap the next peg, and you go back into the center of your loom. Then you come from behind, wrap the first peg you skipped, and that's a figure 8. So again, you skip a peg, wrap the next peg, go back behind the peg you skipped, and wrap again. One more time. This is your standard figure 8. We're not going to do quite that. Then there's a modified figure 8 that's basically the same thing, but you wrap the yarn to the front. So you skip one peg, you go to the front of the second peg, go back, come between the hook, go to the front of the peg you skipped. Again, skipping this peg, go to the front, wrap, go to the front, and then skipping this peg, wrap, go to the back, go in between, and wrap again. That's a modified figure 8. So there's a couple stitches out there that use this as well. We're going to do what's called the Crazy 8. So this is where it gets a little bit different. When you're doing the lace, your first peg is going to be an E-wrap. Okay? Then what you're going to do is you're not going to skip a peg. You're going to come through these pegs and go around the front of this third peg, go around the back, and now you will add the standard figure 8. Wrap, wrap. So you have 3 strands on this peg. For the next one, again, you go front, now you do your regular figure 8, and you have 3 strands on this peg. So you have 2 strands, 3 strands, 2 strands, 3 strands. Basically what you're doing is you're not skipping any of these pegs to do your wrap. So come between, go around the front of this peg, wrap behind the back, and then come across and wrap this again. One more time between these two, around the front, around the back, backward, go in reverse, around the front again. And do it one more time, front, around the back, around the front, and then when you get to your last peg, what you're going to do is you're actually going to do a front wrap yarn over. Most of the projects will call for an E-wrap like that, but because this stitch is a little bit shorter in length, I'll show you why as we go further. I don't want to jump ahead, but because it's a little bit shorter in length, you're going to want to use the front wrap yarn over because it makes the sides of your project shorter to go along with the lace. Just to show you, this is the edge, and these are done with that front wrap yarn over. If I did the regular E-wrap yarn over, let's see if I can get this back a little farther, what I would end up with is I would end up with an outer edge that was longer than my center, and it would curve out like that. And if you added any length at all to this knit, you'd have some wonky shaped little project. So that's why you want to make sure and do that flat knit. Okay, so back we go. Okay, so now that we're done with the wrap, again, you'll see there's 2 strands, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, and so on. If you've done it right, you should have 3 strands every other peg. Okay, the next step is going to be to yarn over 1 strand on all pegs. So whether or not you have 2 strands or 3 strands, you're going to yarn over 1. So this would be 1 over 2, 1 over 1, 1 over 2, over 1, over 2. And when you do your wrap, it's important to make sure you don't wrap it too tightly, otherwise you will not be able to do this. So keep that straw or those fingers a little loose. Okay, so what we're left with is a single strand, double, single, double, single, double. Okay, now we're going to go back. Wherever you have a single strand, you're going to do an E-wrap knit. I shouldn't say an E-wrap knit, you're going to do a wrap. Just wrapping the yarn, you're not going to yarn over. And wherever you have 2 strands, you're going to purl both of these together. So let's move forward. We're going to wrap this peg, we're not going to yarn it over, we're going to purl this peg. So we're going to wrap the next peg and then purl 2 together. Sometimes you have to slide your yarn up to help a little bit. There we go. Then we're going to wrap, and we're going to purl 2 together. Wrap this peg, purl 2 together. Oops, need a little help. Wrap, purl 2 together, wrap, and then this we're going to repeat what we did on the other side. This is going to be a front wrap yarn over, and what we're going to do is we're going to leave these double wrapped pegs, and then we're going to repeat the process. just like we did on the last row, because we're still left with double strand, single strand, double strand, single strand. But what you'll notice is where on the last row our first peg had a single strand, now it has a double strand. So we're basically doing the same thing, but we're doing purl first instead of knit. So we're going to bring our working yarn. I hate working in this direction, so excuse me. We're going to purl 2 together. And then we're going to wrap, purl 2 together, wrap. Another country heard from my dog outside. Purl 2. Let's try and do this with my right hand, and then wrap that. Oh, it's hard to work in this direction. Oops, I'm off camera. There we go. Again, wrap this peg, purl these 2 together. Now because the whole body is where you purl these 2 together, that's what makes it shorter in the center, and that's why you have to finish off with this front wrap yarn over. That was the 3rd row. Now to finish off on the 3rd row, you're going to go ahead and yarn over these remaining double strands. Those are the 3 steps, or the 3 rows it takes to make this figure 8. And a combination of these rows, I'm not sure, I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So this is 13 sets of 3, and this sample is approximately, I'm going to say about 5, not quite 6 inches high, and about the same width. And this was actually, 1, 2, I believe it was 15 pegs, or 14 plus 1 on this sample. So it's going to depend on your yarn, on how many stitches and rows it's going to take per inch. Okay, I adjusted my camera so we can give you a better view for our second set. Again, we're going to do 3 rows per set, and we're going to start with the Crazy 8 wrap. And again, this peg, the first peg here, is going to be just a regular E wrap, and then we're going to go to the front of the second peg, behind the 3rd peg, behind the 2nd peg, to the front of the 4th peg, behind the 5th peg, behind the 4th peg, to the front of the 6th peg, behind the 7th, behind the 6th, to the front of the 8th, behind the 9th, behind the 8th, to the front of the 10th, behind the 11th, behind the 10th, and then a flat wrap knit. Okay, you can see 2 strands, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. I sound like my cleaning, my dental hygienist. 3, 4, 3. Mine are usually 4, 4, 4. Anyway, so we're going to yarn over 1 strand on each peg. 1 over 2. Sorry, 1 over 1. 1 over 2. 1 over 1. 1 over 2. It's always, the first row is always a yarn over with a single strand. Okay, now the second row begins with an E-wrap. Purl 2 together, E-wrap, purl 2 together, E-wrap, purl 2 together, E-wrap, purl 2 together. Come on, there we go, gently. E-wrap, purl 2 together, E-wrap, and a front wrap yarn over. And then the third row always starts with the purl 2 together. Like so. I don't usually work in this direction, so the E-wrap, purl these two together, E-wrap. Normally I work upside down when I'm working left to right, but I'm not going to confuse you with that. E-wrap, purl 2 together, E-wrap, purl 2 together, the E-wrap, purl 2 together, and then we yarn over the remaining E-wrap. And that's row 3. So I'm going to go through it one more time. If you think you've got it, give it a try. If not, we're going to go through it one more time. Again, we begin with an E-wrap, the front of this peg, back, reverse, back, front, back, back, skip, front, back, back, skip, front, back, back, front, back, back, and then a front wrap knit. And we're going to yarn over a single strand on each peg. Alright, row 2 begins with an E-wrap, and then we're going to purl 2 over 1, or 2 together, wrap, purl 2 together, wrap, purl 2 together, wrap, oops, come on, you can do it, purl 2 together, wrap, purl 2 together, wrap, and then a front wrap knit, and then we begin row 3 with the purl 2 together, wrap, purl 2 together, wrap, purl 2 together, wrap, purl 2 together, wrap, wrap, finish with your front wrap knit, and then yarn over the remaining E-wrapped pegs. And those are the 3 rows. I'm not going to do a cast off. Again, this is not a cast on or cast off video. This is just the stitch. You can work this with your whatever your favorite cast on or cast off are, and just work these 3, I should say these groups of 3 rows in between, and you will come up with your crazy 8 stitch. Also, I did want to point out the back actually looks pretty good too. It's nice and snug, and it doesn't look bad in and of itself. So there's how the stitch looks. Again, I recommend it in the small gauge. This is the larger gauge. If you want a looser knit project, this might be a good one. And I will do a separate video showing you how to do it in the round, because it's a little bit different in the round, but it's not difficult. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Have a great day.